Hey guys and girls out there in MIDI guitar land, it's Dolly coming at you from Seoul, South Korea. Today I want to talk about program changes in the context of Helix Native, the fantastic amp sim and effects plugin from Line 6. Now I'm not a Helix hardware user. I've never ever owned a piece of Helix hardware. I've been a Fractal Audio guy for over a decade. But I find that these days I don't use the Axe-FX 2 XL Plus all that much, and that I kind of tend to gravitate towards using the Helix plugin in my pursuit for kind of getting in the box as a shared pursuit with many people in the musical world these days. Now, I'm going to open up a little set here, which is basically designed to send program changes to the Helix Native plugin. So there's been a bit of talk about this on the Gem Origin forum for MIDI Guitar 3 users, or MIDI Guitar, any MIDI Guitar version users, and also on the Gig Performer forum. And I guess there's quite a bit to it, but it's also not devastatingly complex if you approach it with a kind of clear system. So you can always head over to jamosapien.com and have a look for this post that I made using MIDI with Line 6 Helix Native plugins. It's a very simple post. It just basically outlines, in summary, like what you need to do to actually get program changes to hit the plugin. And I've taken this little section from page 59 of the pilot's guide from Line 6. It's worth a read. All the information you need is here. There might be a little bit of sort of assumed knowledge, but it's not too hard to get through. And actually the writing in the Line 6 content is pretty good. So using MIDI with the Helix Native plugin, you can control set lists, presets, and snapshots. You can also control various parameters via either the automation system or direct MIDI control, but we'll get to that. Okay, first of all, I want to just talk about program changes. So what is a program change? It's a category of MIDI message that you can send to like a synthesizer or some kind of hardware effects device or something, or software for that matter, and it will basically select a preset from a huge list of presets. Those presets are typically arranged in banks. Not all devices or plugins have this system, but many do. They're notoriously inconsistent from plugin to plugin and from hardware device to hardware device, but some things remain the same. And those things are that the program change numbers always operate on banks of 128 presets. So in the MIDI protocol, it's always working on the numbers 0 to 127. Okay, so it's 128 events or 128 presets in this case. And program changes don't affect anything other than the selection of presets. However, because we've witnessed the arrival of synthesizers that were capable of storing thousands and thousands of presets, these devices needed a way to be able to access more than 128 presets. So a system was implemented where you would use a string of signals. You would send CC0 followed by CC32 followed by a program change. And when you send a CC message, you always have to send a value with it. So you can sort of imagine that, like if you read this part of the manual here, when Helix Native is in the Helix or off hardware compatibility mode from your MIDI controller device, send a bank change, right? CC32, or it's calling it LSB or least significant byte, message with a value of 0 for setlist 1, 1 for setlist 2, 2 for setlist 3, so on and so forth, up to 7, because the Helix Native plugin has 8 set lists, which are equivalent to banks. So each of those banks holds 128 positions for you to save a preset in. And so what you got, 8 times 128, what's that? It's just over 1,000. It's a lot of presets. You're probably never going to need 1,000 presets. I certainly don't need 1,000 presets, I can tell you. So as it happens with Helix Native, you don't need to send the CC0, but in my experiments, it seems that quite often the CC0 gets sent anyway. when you're sending a program change message. We'll have a look at that in a second. The other thing to note is that you don't have to use the set lists. Okay, you can just select a particular set list as your default kind of location, and then any just straight PC messages without CC32 or CC0 that you send directly to the plugin will just respond to those program changes 0 to 127, but just within that set list. It won't change set lists at all. So that's the first thing. We'll get to snapshots later and to some other things. I'm not even going to bother talking about the globally reserved MIDI CCs. You can check that out if it's of interest to you. I guess it is for snapshots particularly. You want to know that. You can see here actually, MIDI CC 0, it says reserved for use with Helix and X hardware assignments. And CC32, the LSB, it's got the same information as it has over here. So just in order to get going, I've loaded up Ableton Live, and I've got this track here which has an instance of Helix Native on it. And there's nothing crazy going on here. It's just factory setlist 1. I've actually, for whatever reason, the set saved on preset 4. I guess I was using preset 4 when I saved it. So I'm just going to leave it as is. I'm not going to be using any audio today. This is just to demonstrate the program change system. So on the left here, oh, and I should just point out that I'm using the audio unit version of the plugin. Okay, and this is one thing that I did kind of skip over. On Mac OS, you have 4 plugin versions. You've got the audio unit, you've got the AAX. These are both compatible with program changes, and then you've got VST2 and VST3. And VST, neither of the VST formats will support the plugin, will support program changes. Don't ask me why, it seems ridiculous, but it is how it is. So if you're on Mac OS, use an audio unit. If you're on Mac OS and you're using Pro Tools, use an AAX format plugin. I don't think you have any choice anyway. And if you're on Windows, I'm sorry to say that unless you're a Pro Tools user, you're not going to be accessing program changes. But I guess there are other ways to kind of get around that depending on how you conceptualize your setup. So I've got the audio unit version of the plugin here, and audio, basically one of the reasons I like Ableton Live is because it supports audio units, both version 2 and 3. It supports VST 2 and 3. Yeah, so it covers basically all the ground you would need. Now in Ableton Live, it's quite easy to demonstrate program change events because we have these cool little things called clips. Clips have the ability to send program changes. Now, I've always thought it was a bit strange that Ableton Live doesn't respond to program changes, not natively anyway. You might be able to do some stuff with Max for Live and, you know, sort of workarounds, but it doesn't really, it doesn't really work that way. So I've got a list of 25 events here. You can see them numbered over on the right there. Okay, and so if I just sort of scroll down through these, and if you look down in the bottom box here, in the clip box, clip information box, as I move down, the program changes are moving up. They go through to 25. I went through and programmed them all myself. You can see also that bank and sub are empty boxes, right? Nothing's been selected in those. Bank is equivalent to CC0 or the MSB, and sub is equivalent to CC32 or LSB. Now I can demonstrate that. I might do it later, but just for the purpose of the exercise now, if I just open up a MIDI test device or application, and let's just send this MIDI to, I don't know, DAW to Helix, that'll do. Okay, and when I start sending these program changes, you're going to see a list growing down here. These are all the program change events as they occur. Now, I'm just going to undo that change, put it back to Helix Native AU. And what we'll notice now, just clear that. And what we're going to notice now is that as I send these program changes, program change 1, the presets are changing over on the right here. Now it's really that simple. A program change just triggers the selection of a preset in the plugin. Okay, and if you're like, you know, the common user like me, I don't ever really need to use more than one set list, but that's how you're going to approach it. So from my foot controllers, like I've got a soft step 2 down here, and I could demonstrate this here. So on this track, let me just choose a MIDI track. I'll pop it in there. I'm going to choose MIDI in from soft step control surface, and I'm going to output the MIDI to Helix Native AU. Okay, and so now keep your eyes over here. Yep, silly me, I didn't arm the track. That's why it's not working. Okay, now when I press these buttons, you can see, boom, boom, I'm pressing whatever. It's changing to different preset numbers. And you can see down here at the same time, this is the program data that's being transmitted. It's just program changes, it's not sending any CC 0 or CC 32. Okay, let's move on to the next step. So we'll clear that. Okay, so that's one way of sending program changes, but the other way is if you want to select the set lists here. Okay, so you've got the 8 set lists, as I was saying. So I've selected, I've created another group of PC clips, and if we have a look at the PC clip data down here, we can see now I've slightly adjusted these. So this has a CC0 message, bank 1, and a CC32 message, sub 2, right? So MSB, LSB, plus the program change. So if I send this to this channel here, just so I'm just sending it into the MIDI monitor, just so you can visualize what's happening. We can see now that we're getting groups of 3 messages. So you get the control 0, so that's CC0, CC32, and program 0. And you'll see 2 numbers on this line here. So that's CC0 plus value 0, and that's CC32 value 0. Okay, so if I just undo that and put it back to Helix Native AU, now when I start triggering these events, I'll just program change events, you can see that they're moving along. And when I go to the next one here, actually I want this to be visualized. When I go to the next clip down, when I go to the next clip down, you can see bank 1 sub 2 program change 1. So now when I trigger this, dunk, it's going to go over to factory set list, or set list factory 2. There's this one, and so on and so forth. So as I step through these MIDI clips, things are changing. And so now we're going to go into the next set list. Bam. So we're into the next one. And it's all happening. There we go. The next set list. And I'll go into the last set list. There we go. There's nothing in this set list for me. It's an empty set list. But it doesn't matter. It's still going to choose the slots. Even if I send 25 now, it's going to select the 25th preset in the list, 0 through to 24. Okay, all right, so that's how you access the set lists in combination with the program changes. Okay, so that's Ableton Live, and I used Ableton Live specifically because it's kind of a simple environment to demonstrate this in. But I also want to just point out that if you do try and send program changes to the VST3 version of the plugin, keep an eye on this little area down here. You're going to see MIDI in hitting the plugin, but you're not going to see any actual program changes. So you can see the little green indicator flashing on, but as it stands, those particular kind of MIDI events are not going to make it through. Okay, so just beware of that. It's really important. I would also add that if you are in an environment like Bitwig that doesn't support audio units, then you'll have to find a workaround to get the MIDI into an AU plugin. So I'll quickly jump onto that and explain how I achieved that. Okay, let's open Bitwig. I really like Bitwig. I've been working with Bitwig quite a bit on and off over the past year or so. I'm just going to open a new project, but I am mildly frustrated by the fact that it doesn't support audio units. It seems crazy for any DAW, modern DAW that has a macOS version to not support audio units, but I guess it is what it is. So what do we do if we want to use Helix Native in this particular plugin, in this particular DAW, and we want to use program changes? It's a bit tricky, but we'll get there. So what we're going to do, we're going to employ a handy plugin from Blue Cat Audio called PatchWork. Now, I can really only recommend to use the VST2 version. I've had a lot of problems with getting the VST3 version to work properly. Not across the board, but with Helix specifically, I suppose. So I'm going to choose BC Patchwork VST2. Okay, it's not a free plugin. As far as free plugins go, I think there's one you can find on GitHub called Cushview. I think it does kind of pretty much the same job. So I've opened up this plugin called Patchwork, and I've already saved a preset in here just called Helix Test. So I'm just going to load that. Oops, we might. Okay, so we've got Helix Native loaded in here, and we've got the Helix Native plugin, which has come up here. And I saved this as an audio unit. So on this little box here, you can go down here and select what kind of plugin, load AU. You can type in Helix and then enter, and it will load. But I've already loaded it, so I'm not going to do it again. Okay, so what this basically does is it wraps the Helix Native plugin inside the VST2 version of Patchwork here. So now I can load that. Whoops. I can load that. You won't be hearing that, only I'll be hearing it if I do hear anything. And the next step is to funnel in the program changes. So how do I get program changes into this application now? Well, I'm going to quickly rename it just for the for the sake of clarity, Helix via BC Patchwork. Okay, so as far as I know, and I could be wrong, I don't think there's a way that you can directly set a MIDI input for a given track in Bitwig. Where's my input? There we go. That's my guitar input. Okay, so what you have to do is you have to take a MIDI track like so, and you have to, on this track, choose the input. So I'm going to choose the not the SY1000. I'm going to choose the KMI Soft Step 2. And I'm going to select all channels, and I'm going to activate that, and I'm going to send the MIDI out. You have two options. You can either send it to the track, Helix via BC Patchwork, and if you send it to the track like that, it will basically be available at any MIDI channel. Or you can send it to the plugin, and if you select plugin, then you'll be asked to select a specific MIDI channel. So I tend to use Helix on channel 2, so I'm just going to keep with that way of doing things, and I'm going to activate this now. Okay, so MIDI's coming in on this track here. I'm just going to rename it. I'm going to call it MIDI in. Okay, MIDI in's coming into this track, and then it's being sent through to the Helix track. In terms of setting this up, you can do some things like all channels into one. I tend to set this to just same what I'm doing, but yeah, that's I don't think it's going to make much impact at this moment. So I've got my MIDI controller again. Oh, there we go. We can see the program changes are passing through. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, or all of those numbers minus 1, I suppose. And that just works. So now you've got program changes for Helix inside Bitwig. You just have to find some kind of plugin that will do the hosting, like Patchwork, the paid option, or you can find Cushview, I think does the same thing. Okay, so that's how you can get around that. as a final option, and I really didn't want this video to get too long. I think it's not really helpful to anybody if these things are too long. I'm just opening up this this gig file, which it's kind of work in progress for me. I haven't quite finished it yet, but I'll just basically explain how it works. So this is to incorporate snapshots into your workflow. Now snapshots seem pretty handy, and to me they seem kind of like the same idea, not exactly the same, but maybe akin to scenes on the Axe FX. You can get crazy in the comments and debate how they're different. They are different, they're clearly not the same, but they have some similar characteristics. So the idea is that you can access snapshots inside the native plugin. Let me just open the plugin. Here it is. Okay. So interestingly, whoever created this this set, I downloaded this off the Gig Performer forum. They were using, how does this work? I guess they were using Bogner Shiva. I'm not quite exactly sure how this preset here is selected, but it has a different name. But anyway, I guess I could tidy this up, but it's still work in progress, like I said. So the idea is that in your wiring view, you can instantiate Helix Native. You right click on it, you go down, you have to give it a handle. Okay, so set handle, call it native, that's fine, and use in GPScript. Okay, so once you give it that handle, it gets this little bracketed S on it, which I guess probably stands for script. I'm not sure, but anyway, it is what it is. And then you can head up to the options options window, and head down to the current Rackspace script editor. And we can see here is the script, which was really kindly compiled by the compiler, but it was kindly created by the creator on the Gig Performer forum. And just off the top of my head right now, that user's name is escaping me, so I apologize, but thank you very much for helping me with this, because the original version was only available for VST3, which of course meant that you couldn't access program changes and snapshots at the same time. That user modified the script here, and now it supports audio units. So you can find that on the forum. I think it's actually, yeah, you'll just have to search for Helix Native and snapshots. So basically you instantiate that and you compile it. Well, it compiles automatically when you load the system. Going into the actual scripting is beyond the scope of this and beyond my ability too. I do not fully understand how it works. I partially understand how it works. But the idea is that once you do that and you go through and you can set up your buttons here, or they've already been set up because somebody else created the set. But once that's all configured, you can now select snapshots, and you'll see the snapshots are changing over here. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And further to that, if you change the snapshots here, they sync on the GUI of Gig Performer, which is really nice. So you've got that, but also in addition to that, if you now want to take MIDI in from your controller, like I was doing before, you can do that. So I'll just grab my controller again, and I'm just going to send some program changes. So yeah, how about I mess around with this one? Okay, so I can now just select snapshots really easily up here, but I've still got my presets. If I change to a new preset, amp and cab, different preset. The only thing I would say about it is that when you go to a new preset, it always defaults to snapshot 1. So there's not a real-time sync between the snapshot state in the plugin and the new preset. There might be a way to configure that, but I don't know how to do it, and maybe I'll try and talk to the to someone on the forum to see if I can figure out how to do it. But that basically gives you access to both snapshots and to program changes. Now, just to take that a tiny little step further, I'm going to take this out for a second. Let me just add a panel. There we go. And I'm just going to put in a single slider. Bam. And I'm going to control Helix Native with that. And I'm going to select the final parameter, which is snapshot in Snackshop. Must be hungry. Snapshot index. Okay, so a snapshot index is basically enabling you to get our plugin up, scroll through the snapshots. Now, that may or may not be something that would be useful to you, but I just wanted to point out that that's something you can do. Okay. I also wanted to quickly cover the idea of getting MIDI into the actual plugin to control parameters, because it's a little bit of a convoluted system, and I'm guessing it's probably got something to do with the way that the hardware and the, well, how do you put it, like the platform, the Helix platform, you know, so you have kind of integration between like your software version and your plugin versions, your various hardware versions. And yeah, so for that reason, I would just point out that first of all, in the settings, I tend to, well, number one, I tend to select the 000 to 127 preset numbering format. And for hardware compatibility, I turn it off and set that as default. And yeah, that's my settings there. Prompt disabled, height assignments disabled. Yeah, so let's just say we want to do two things. We want to control the volume in terms of the position of the volume pedal. And we want to, what's another thing that we want to do? We might want to turn the delay on, say for example. So let's figure out how to do those two things. So first of all, inside Helix, if you click on the effect that you want to target, you'll see that underneath you've got edit and you've got automation controller assign. So edit is just how you basically select the given effect or parameter and then effect, and then on the right hand side is where you adjust the parameters. Okay, and for anything that you select, you can see all the parameters that are available. So here for volume, we've got the position of the pedal. All right, so that's like moving your pedal from heel to toe, and then you've got the curve. All right, and I'm going to leave it on linear, and then you've got it on or off. So you've got three parameters there basically. So now if we head over to automation controller assign, you choose what you want to target. So in this case, I want to target position. Again, that's the sweep of the pedal. And we have two ways that we can handle this now. So we can, let me go to order. We can choose a knob or switch to control that. And obviously we're going to choose a knob because it's a continuous sweep. And when you select a knob, that's basically automation control. That basically says to the host or the DAW, whatever you're using, when you see me, you can control me, and whatever messages you send to me at this destination, I'll use those to control the position of the volume here, or whatever the parameter is. In this case, it's a volume position. So now if I go over back to my interface here, like the GUI of Gig Performer, and I want to select Helix as the target, but this time I'm not going to select snapshot. I'm just going to choose knob 1. Okay, and I'm going to close that down. And what you're going to notice now, hopefully, when I move this slider, yep, the position is changing. Okay, so that's parameter automation. Okay, that's the first way of doing it. Now, another way of doing it, and you know what, we'll do that for the, just to sort of consolidate the information. We'll add a button, add a green button, right? And I'm going to assign this to Helix Native, and I'm going to assign this rather to a switch. Not switch 2, I'm going to set switch 1. Okay, and whoops, that's just on or off. Okay, and I don't need to do anything else. That's it, basically it's done. Now I need to go into Helix Native, and I'll go to delay. Okay, down here we can see all the parameters. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There should be 6. There's the on off, and there's sync, feedback, mix, level, and trails on or off. So we head over to here, and if I click on this, we can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, I guess I missed one. Okay, that's fine. Anyway, the point is here, I'm just choosing bypass. Okay, bypass is the parameter that I want to target, and automation, I want it to be switch 1. Okay, so now the list is growing over here, and we can see over on the main interface here. Now I just need to go out of the edit mode. We can see that something's happening here. So delay is turning on and off, but I seem to have this set to momentary. So we'll just go back here, and yeah, I had it on momentary touch, my bad. Okay, now it's going to be just on and off. So you can see that the delay is changing over here, and if you watch the power button there, on, off, on, off. Too easy, right? Too easy. Okay, so, but let's just say that you don't want to get into host automation. That's fine, you don't have to do it this way. There is another way to approach this. So let's just go back in here, and let's reload this preset. Just clear the automation stuff. I didn't save it, so it's not in the preset. So when we come over here now, oh, it seems that it does actually have a MIDI CC assigned to it already. Okay, that's interesting. I don't recall doing that. Let me just clear that, just so we've got a clear slate, so to speak. And I'm just going to grab my control pedal. Now this pedal that I'm using here, I'm just plugging it into the soft step. It sends, I'll just pop it up here. There we go. All right. It sends CC1. We can verify that on this testing environment here. Soft step control, and you'll see zoom, zoom. Okay, it's sending program changes just because I've got the pedal on top and it's putting pressure on that. But if you look at channel 1, 127 sweeping down to 0, heel and toe. Okay, or toe and heel. So that's working fine. Now if we go into the wiring, let's grab my MIDI input. Let's grab soft step, and I don't need to do any special modifications there, and I'm just going to connect that. And so straight away we should just see MIDI activity on the cable there. You can see the orange cable is lighting up as MIDI activity occurs. And now if we go into the plugin and I go back to volume again, so what do I want to do? Okay, I want to select position. Okay, and I want to MIDI learn it. Okay, so I moved my pedal and it caught MIDI CC1. That's good. Okay, so that's done. So now when I move my pedal, it's all done. And if you save the preset in Helix Native, that assignment will be saved. Okay, let's do the same thing with the delay. Okay, so now I want to control the delay. I want to control the bypass. Okay, so I'm going to learn that. And that's CC20, and that's a toggle on my controller, so that's good. So that's pretty much it. So basically now, if I go back to the edit screen, you can see here now it's off, on, off, on, off, on, off, on, off. Too easy, right? Okay, so that's that enables you to just go directly into the plugin. And like I was saying, if you go ahead and click on that and save to library, all those parameters will be remembered. Okay, so we've covered snapshots, and now we've covered like how to control parameters via CCs directly, and we've looked at all the different ways that you can control program changes. I think we've pretty much covered all bases. I would just add one more possible way to approach this, and consider this just kind of like, I don't know, maybe a bit of a bonus. Okay, I had to tap out of that last video because I ran out of time, so I'm just come back to have a quick look at how to add buttons to a rack space in Gig Performer so that you can use it to select program changes in a plugin. So I just briefly demonstrated in the global rack space how I'd use these buttons here, and actually I'll just go over it again because I actually ended up modifying it slightly before, like right after the video ended. I just started playing with it. So it looks a little bit different to what you would have seen there, but it's essentially the same principle. So what we got here, if I look in the wiring, the key audio plugins, audio and MIDI I should say, are Helix Native and MIDI Guitar 3. Okay, now if I want to change presets in either of those plugins, they both respond to program changes. So in order to get the program change into the plugin, you either need to send it from a hardware device, or you need to send it from some, from a widget. And widgets won't send a program change directly, or I mean, they will send it directly, but they need to be attached to a MIDI port in order for the program change to actually get transmitted through to the plugin. So you can see here that I've got these two IAC driver ports that I've created. One's called the IAC driver DAW to Helix, and the other one's called DAW to MIDI Guitar 3. Okay, so just bear that in mind when we go back. Now you can see up the top here, I've got these four, I'm going to edit mode, I've got these four buttons, right? And I've also got another four buttons down here. They weren't there before, but I ended up making them. I might delete them and make them again just to show how it's done. So for me, the way I use this is that I like the tunings to be accessible in MIDI Guitar 3. So I always have four that I want to use. I have standard tuning, reverse tuning, fourth tuning, and fifth tuning. So I've got those labeled there. I've got four buttons. They're grouped. You can tell they're grouped because they have these numbers on them, right? You only see that when you're in edit mode. If you go out, they disappear. So if we take a basic program change button, click on the button in edit mode, select the target, right? And it says plugin here, but I don't know, I don't really think of the MIDI ports or the devices in the wiring mode as plugins, but maybe it's a good way to think of them because these are plugins and it's the same visual representation, just other than the color. So you're selecting the plugin. Among your plugins, you've got the actual like Helix Native and MIDI Guitar 3, but you've also got all these MIDI ports. So for this one, I've selected IAC driver DAW to MG3. It's the same on the other ones too. And I've also selected parameter 155, which is a program change. 155 is not related to the actual program change. There is no such thing as program change 155. But yeah, that's just the parameter number. And you can access that just by typing PC down in the search bar here, or you can type 155 if you're familiar with the number. But in any case, I've already selected it. I've given it a radio group here, so it's number 1. You can check out the settings here. I've given it a name, so it's got a customized caption on. Everything else is deactivated except for hide temporary value. I don't really want to see the value. I can tell whether the button's on or off by the color status. So then if we have a look at the other tabs, I don't need MIDI yet because I'm not actually using a foot controller to control this. I'm just controlling it with the switches on the GUI directly using a mouse. So I don't need to teach it any device to connect with yet, but if I wanted to do that later, that's possible. Then under the value is kind of the most important part. So the first thing we need to look at is that if you click on this box here, by default, like if I just drag a new one over here, where is it? I'll just drag the same one over. By default, you can see that it comes up with this, what do you call it? Just like linear event from 0 to 100. Okay, but for the program change to send, the maximum and the minimum have to be the same or in the same range. So the way that you actually want to do it is you want to, for the first one, for program change 0, right, the first event, you drag the top down so it's a 0, and that gives you a flat line. Now I think there's probably another way to do it. You do this. Oh, that's both. I guess it depends on what kind of shape you choose. Okay, so I don't want invert and I don't want reverse. I just want a flat line. So I'm going to just drag that down. Okay, so you want to create that same kind of shape over here, and I've already done that. You can see 0, 0. And when you do this, you can actually enter the values here. So you can type 0M like that, and that'll give you a MIDI value. And you type it again, 0M at the bottom. And you can see it's actually triggering the program change immediately as I do that. Okay, so that's all done, and you don't need to do anything on advanced. I turn this off, send on radio button, send on, why is it hard to say? Send on radio button off. That's deactivated. Get rid of that. So on these other buttons, you do all the same things as I did before. You just give it, a unique label, and in the value now, keep it a flat line like that, but give it a new value. So in this one, I'm going to enter 1M, and in the bottom, I'm going to enter 1M. You can see that's triggering the second program change there. Okay, it's reverse for me. 0 to mini MP reverse. And you just continue this, I don't know what happened there. 1M. It's coming up as 0.79. Doesn't phase me too much, but I think they should be the same if possible. And we did the same in the next one. So you're going to go in here and you're going to enter 2M, 2M, so on and so forth. And once you've done all those, so I'm just holding down Option and clicking the keys now, you can see that each button triggers a new program change. Too easy, right? So I duplicated these down below, and I haven't given them names or anything. I just put 4 PC numbers on them. And so you can see if we look at how it's done. Oh, yeah. So the first thing is that I've selected a different plugin, right? So I've gone in here and selected IAC driver DAW to Helix, and I've selected 155, parameter 155, which is the program changes. And I've just put a number over here, PC000. I've gone through and done the same action over here, making a flat line and putting in the MIDI values there. So I've probably explained this before, but because it's like a range of 0 to 100, if you want to split that up over 128 values, you need to get it to scale. That's why you use the M in there. That lets the value know that it's meant to be on a MIDI scale. And yeah, I've gone through and done that with all of the buttons. They're basically exactly the same. The only difference is that this one's sending to the DAW to Helix plugin. Okay, and so now if we look over at the GUI on, get out of there. There we go, over there now. We should see that when I send the program changes, the presets are changing. So that's it. So I just have one little addendum I'd like to make to this. I just forgot to mention it before. In the current gig file, I only have the IAC driver door-to-door selected, and I'm not actually sending anything on it. It's just a MIDI port that I use when I'm sending program changes from Ableton Live into Gig Performer as a kind of testing environment. If I was actually using this with a foot controller, I'd approach it a little bit differently. I wouldn't be using it like that. But I think it's kind of interesting because you can basically see that there's really only the possibility for the top level global rack space to receive PC messages from that channel and on channel 1. So anything else is happening in the background, so to speak. So when you are sending a program change through, say, the daughter Helix channel, I mean, in essence, it's sending on channel 1, I believe. Just double check. So, yep, channel 1, channel 1, channel 1, channel 1, channel 1. And I don't think you can change that, can you? You might be able to rechannelize it in here or something. Yeah, you can probably like rechannelize all to 2 or something like that. And then I guess if you send messages now, yeah, they're coming in on channel 2. Yeah, it doesn't matter because each of these buttons is tied directly to a plugin. You know, if I click on this, it's not going to send, and I set it for channel 2 or something, it's not like it's automatically going to get sent into this device. It can only be sent to wherever it's cabled to. Yeah, so I just wanted to point that out. You know, it's not I guess a really big deal, but it's important to be aware of. Okay, so of course there's more you can do there. Like you can connect other controllers to these program changes. So like, for example, excuse my dinner. TECL, what's that? Yeah, right. Okay, so I've got some momentary buttons here, and I've got some toggle buttons here. I guess the way I've got these configured is a little bit weird. It's not weird, but it's not really suitable for this kind of activity, but or not optimal for this kind of activity, but you could certainly do it. So like I could learn, and I could learn and just turn that off. And now what you should see, so the buttons here will look weird, but it's actually changing the presets as I send those messages. But notably, these messages are CC messages. So I'm actually using CCs to control program changes now, which might be useful for you if you have a controller that doesn't actually transmit program changes or something like that. And that's what I kind of meant when I talked about transforming MIDI. So the idea is that, like, point A, you have a continuous controller, you send it into Gig Performer and you bind it to a controller widget here, and then the widget has some kind of like rules about what kind of data it's going to send when it gets triggered, so which then gets forwarded onto the plugin. So yeah, that's kind of that. So anyway, I think that's pretty much all I've got to say on the matter, and I hope you find this useful. And yeah, I mean, you could really knock yourself out with this and go really far into programming, and hopefully you will, and hopefully it will help you to build the rig of your dreams. Yeah. Alrighty, that's it for me. I'll see you in the next one. Take care all.